few months ago, I made a video here about how I struggled with my burnout and leaving my engineering career. And I was actually surprised with the amount of people that were commenting and actually relating to everything that I was saying, especially because my channel here is so small. I didn't expect anybody to even see that video. So to hear those words, those kind words, and people saying that they struggle with the same things, that was very reassuring and also surprising. So I decided to do this update video to talk about more things that I left out in that first video and how I'm doing now and what's next for me, what I'm working on currently, and just give an overall update on how things are going. I also want to talk about the reasons why I left, because in the last video I was focusing more on my burnout experience, but I wasn't really mentioning too many of the reasons why I left engineering in the first place and why I felt burned out in my experience working in the engineering field. So I want to talk about those things here in case you can relate to it, or in case you're considering the engineering career, or whatever you can get from it. I want to give a very blunt and a very honest story about my burnout and also my experience in general. That's my experience. Your experience can be different, and I would like to hear about it as well so we can get both sides of this story, but I want to talk about my experience here. Very quick background. I worked in the engineering field, specifically in the energy industry, for almost 10 years when I left, and now I'm trying to pivot to the fitness industry. I'm trying to become a coach, a fitness coach, so I'm currently working on my certifications, and I want to talk more about this ahead in the video, but I want to start with the reasons why I left engineering in the first place. Here's the thing, my dad is also an engineer, or was also an engineer. He's retired now, but I think one of the reasons why I chose engineering was because of him, and he always warned me about how the corporate world is and the things that go behind the scenes and people don't talk too much about. And it's not that I didn't believe him, but I think I still had a hope that my companies were different, that my experience was going to be different. And the more time I spent in the corporate world working in the engineering field, I saw that everything that he said was actually true. One of the things that, for example, made me fall out of love with the corporate world, or engineering specifically, was that I felt like the yes men were progressing, while the people that would speak up, the managers that would speak up for their teams, were not seeing the same progress, were staying behind. That was a huge reflection of what my future looked like, that if I didn't play the game, I was going to stay stuck. So I asked myself if that's what I want. Do I want to change my morals? Do I want to change my ethics? Or do I want to change who I am for progressing or for climbing the corporate ladder, how they say? The answer is no. So how much I was able to progress if I was now willing to do what it takes. And of course, that doesn't just happen in the corporate world or engineering specifically. I think it happens in many places, but seeing that firsthand made me fall out of love with staying, or just made me feel like I wasn't going to get the reward for my work. Maybe it was true, maybe it wasn't, maybe I was looking too much into it, but that's the experience I had. Like I said, I'll be talking about my experience from my perspective specifically. It can be different from your experience and your perspective, but that's how I felt. And don't get me wrong, I am not the person that speaks up and that's loud. I'm not like that at all. But every now and then, whenever I had something to say, whenever I disagreed, whenever I would speak up, I felt like I was shut down. And because my demeanor is not to keep speaking up, to not be loud, I feel like I had a tendency to accept things more. But I'm not just basing that on myself. I would see other team members that were like that, and they would keep speaking up and they would keep being loud. And I would also see them getting kind of stuck. I wouldn't see them progressing the way they should. I would see that they were very skilled, they were very technically skilled, they were great at people skill if they were a manager, and they were great in all areas, but the thing is that they would speak up, they would be loud, and for that reason I didn't see them progressing either. So Yeah, that made me question things. Before I started working as an engineer, I saw engineers as people who were supposed to use their brains and come up with solutions and improve things. But the more I stayed, the more I realized that that's not what the companies want. The companies want us to just accept the demands and do what we're told. They do want us to come up with solutions, but only when they ask us for it. And that kind of didn't really resonate with me because I had ideas that many times were outside of what they expect me to do. Sometimes they would assign me a work, I would come up with ideas, I would get invested in that project for them to just cut me off and switch me to a different one. And then I would just see all my ideas and my work just kind of go down the drain. I felt like I was also constantly being put to work in projects that I didn't really believe in, and I would communicate that, but that wasn't really taken into account. I was assigned work that I didn't feel was actually meaningful, that felt a little bit purposeless, to be honest. I would communicate those things again, but I was just told what to do at some point. I also felt like I was being assigned work that I didn't feel I was actually good at, or that I didn't have much value to add, while I felt like I had way more value to add in other types of projects. And I understand that when you work for a company, you're not just supposed to do what you want to do, but when you constantly keep being assigned to things that you're not good at, then how are you expect to do a good job, right? You can only be catching up, and that's how I felt like I was constantly catching up and not really creating meaningful work. On top of that, I felt like we were expected to just put in extra work hours, like for example, for work events or networking events and things that we were kind of obliged to go to. And I come from a culture where that's not really a thing, at least not in my previous company. I come from Brazil, and I'm not saying that that company was also perfect or anything like that, but I think in Brazil we have more strict labor laws. So that was a little bit of a shift for me when I moved to the US, where we were just expected to go to these networking events or these work events and not really get paid extra hours, or like I did in my previous company in Brazil, the accumulated hours past the 40 hours per week would just go towards time off. So I would take extra paid time off if that was the case. And I think because I came from a culture where that's not really a thing, that to me just didn't feel right to be expected to participate in work-related events and not be paid extra hours or not be able to account those hours in your worked hours. To me, just didn't feel quite right. And I kind of felt like I was being told what to do like a child, you know, like when you're in school and you're just expected to go to these school events because you have to learn to socialize with the other kids and things like that. But we're adults, so we should be able to choose if you want to go to these networking events. And many people would choose to go, right? To many people, it would resonate with them. I think many people actually enjoy those work events, but I think it should be more of an option. And I felt like that wasn't really the case. Not all of us want to spend the days before the holidays with our coworkers. And I think, in my opinion, that that's understandable. And it's understandable too that some people will want to join those work events, and that's okay too, but I think we have to account for people that don't want to participate, and that's fine. I think the other thing that also made me fall out of love with the corporate world was just that I saw inflation going up. I think we all know what's happening, but my salary would stay the same, which pretty much means that I'm getting paid less while I accumulate more experience, while I'm assigned more responsibility, and that didn't feel fair. And I understand their circumstances, we're leaving, and I think the company used that to excuse that many times. And one side of me understands, but at the same time, if we are unable to raise the salary so it matches the inflation or have progressively higher salaries, then maybe they shouldn't expect us to keep putting in more hours or taking on more responsibilities. In my opinion, at least, something has to give. That would make it more fair in the way I see it. I also talked a little bit more about my background in the previous video, but I graduated in civil engineering at what is considered a top university in my country. So seeing myself being financially dependent on my husband while being in my mid-30s, working in the same industry for almost 10 years. I spoke 3 languages, which were all utilized by the company. I did not expect that to be the case. I expected to be more of an independent woman. I expected that After everything that I've been through, college was not easy. It was a time where I wasn't able to work. I putting all those hours into working in the same industry to make sure I was more specialized. So I didn't expect for me to actually struggle to pay the rent in the downtown area of a big city by the time that I was in my mid-30s with almost 10 years of experience. More than 10 years if you account for the year and a half that I did of internships in other areas, in other fields. So yeah, that's something that I didn't expect to happen. If you had asked me when I was still in college or before college, I would expect to be more financially independent at this point. And that was something that also made me question everything. Now, switching to a lighter tone, what's next? What's ahead of me? What I'm doing right now? Like I mentioned, I want to become a fitness coach. I saw an interview with Mark Manson, the author of the book, The Art of Not Giving an F, where he said that when you're trying to find your passion, when you're trying to find what you actually like to do and something that you can turn into a job, we need to first put away your biases with regards to how much money that passion can provide you. If you keep going towards that, then you're going to stay away from your passions. But it's also true that we need to make an income, right? We do need to pay our bills as an adult. I think where to me it was so hard for me to actually find my passion in something that I could be doing next is that I did have this bias thinking that fitness was something that was so enjoyable for me to do, competing in bodybuilding, just going to the gym, building muscle, all things that I love to do. So how can I make an income from that, especially because we have so many fitness people out there, but we also have many engineers, and I never questioned that. So I think that that's one of the things that was keeping me away from finding my true passion. But when I reached my burnout in my previous career, I think that's when I started seeing clearer and I started questioning if I should actually try the fitness career. So what I've been doing now is I just got my nutrition certification and I'm now studying personal training so I can also get my personal training certification. Many people told me that for online coaching, you don't need certifications, which is true, but I'm a person that I don't like to just do things in a sloppy manner. I want to be prepared when I start something. So I want to be prepared for when I start coaching to make sure that I can do a good job. And I obviously have to learn along the way since everything is new to me. So that's what I've been doing now. Also, obviously, I've been doing YouTube, so I've been learning how to edit videos, how to film, how to work with my camera, which was just collecting dust for so many years now. And it's been fun. Of course, the fact that I no longer have a salary is a pressing thing. I do want to get an income again, and I'm also aware that it's going to take some time for me to match the income that I had before, and that may never happen, who knows, but I do feel like the trade-off for this new life I'm building is so worth it because I was at a point that I just couldn't keep pushing anymore. I had pushed for so many years, so I think it was the right time to make this pivot. Money aside, I think there's also the value that I can add to people that I felt like I hadn't added in so many years in the engineering field. Like I said, many times I felt like my work was just purposeless, and I do feel that I can actually help people through fitness, like the way I helped myself, and I want to help people implement the same life changes that I have implemented and prevent them from making the mistakes that I have made, and also avoid the same traps that I fell into working with previous coaches of mine. I know what worked when I was working with them, and I know what didn't work very well. One of the things that I felt like coaches, they don't always listen to their clients very much, and that's something that I want to change. I want to be able to listen to people, be able to adapt, and not just be pushing meal plans and workouts no matter what. I know how hard it was for me with, an engineering career, how hard it was to just pushed those crazy protocols, so I don't want to be doing that. And I wanted to make this video in case other people can relate to it too. If you feel stuck in your corporate job, know that you're not alone. I've been there, and I know it's very hard to pivot. Like I mentioned before, I'm getting support from my husband during this transition phase, but I know not everybody has this support, and sometimes you just need to pivot while being in your job. But I just want to tell you, don't lose hope. Prepare your escape plan and have a second option. If that career doesn't bring you fulfillment anymore, if you feel like you're not being treated right, I think it's very much worth to look for other things that you can be doing, and don't let your biases stop you. Don't let your limiting thoughts stop you. If you have a story to share, please let me know here in the comments. And like I mentioned before, the reason for me to start this channel is because I want to share fitness and nutrition advice based on my experience and based on what I've seen in the fitness industry, based on what I believe works and what I believe doesn't work, and try to bust myths that I had fell for in the past to make sure more people are aware and don't fall for the same traps. And if you're interested in achieving an extreme physique without extreme methods, please hit the subscribe button. And if you want to work with me, I'll keep you updated once I get my certifications and I start taking on clients. That's it for this video. See you next week.